What we've really come to understand is it's the hand action that actually drives the
If you
life.
have good hands, you know what to do with your hands. So much works back into the body, and the golfer they're empowered when they know how to use their hands properly.
Hello and welcome to this Peter Croker, MartinChuck webinar, breaking the 3 barriers that stop you becoming a more consistent golfer. So we'll say hello to Peter and Martin.
Hey
Hello,
guys.
Peter. Hello, Martin.
Here, Bob. Good to see you. But anyway, everybody, welcome. Thanks for tuning in. It's a pleasure to be with you and with my friend Peter Croker, who's a mentor coach of mine and dear friend. He's helped me develop my coaching style over the years. So I owe him a debt of gratitude. You know, misunderstood concepts are, wouldn't you say, Peter, probably the thing that holds people back the most?
I'd say in the beginning, definitely, and along the way.
The journey of this will probably bounce around a little bit in how we discuss these things, but like misunderstood concepts. Why don't you take us through, Peter? The thing we see in the lesson to you all the time is the intent, rather than going A to B with a club head from the 2-target game, what people try to do to the golf ball. Let's just go ahead and knock that one out of the park right now.
Exactly. Well, basically, when you're wanting to hit the golf ball to the flag in this direction, logically, when you start the game or along the way, you think, oh, I want to hit the ball straight, so I want the club to go well. Over here in Australia, we play cricket, and when you play cricket, you want to make the bat go down what we call the straight bat. But golf is not cricket. It's you're swinging the club, you're standing to the side, and the club swings around and up and around and up. So what you want to do is make the club go from the top of the backswing, wherever the backswing arrives at, directly down towards the ball. So if I had a golf ball over here and I was in this direction, the club is not traveling on the straight target line, it's coming up on this incline wheel. Now what must happen, the downswing, we need to throw the head from a 2-target game. It's not the one target. The club head's target and the ball are not the same target. So this was a really major insight, that when we learn to make the club go in the direction where the shaft moves in line with the arm, the club head then can come down on this incline. Now when it does that, the club plate won't stay open, it will naturally release over, and at the moment of impact, like a door, it just comes back and hits square before it goes on the other side. So making golf a 2-target game rather than the 1 target is a real a major breakthrough for a lot of golfers, and it stops the ball going way over to the left, and it stops the slice because you start to release the club face in the process, get a nice solid impact.
Yeah, so to add on to that, you know, you see in my video, I've got a hula hoop right here. So, you know, in my hula hoop, like you'd mentioned, golf's a side-on game where we stand to the side, and we've got this tool to influence the golf ball. That's a situation where this golf club is working down in the direction A to B to the golf ball, rather than some place that is not in the same relationship side on. So once people start to understand that if they can get the golf club head to work in a manner which they're very comfortable doing, actually, like we impose our will on the club head through our hands. And for a lot of golfers, if we put them in this position and teach them to uncock this golf club kind of in the plane of their lead arm, in the direction down and out to the golf ball, you know, that behavior is a very successful delivery for most people and eliminates a slice immediately. Occasionally, we have to fix a grip naturally. We have to adjust some conditions with the hands occasionally. I shouldn't say occasionally. In my case, for a lot of the golfers I see, it's most of the time. But once we build a functional grip where the club face isn't twisted open or twisted too closed, and golfers learn how to take the golf club from A to B, a lot of beautiful things happen. Arms start to work properly. Elbows don't separate. You'll notice that I'll see a lot of golfers get very, very steep on the way down to the target line. Elbows are separate, but if you're truly going A to B, elbows stay together nicely, and you have plenty of time to have this golf club face square, like Peter said, rather than something where we try to get to the target line too quickly. then all of a sudden we have some reaction, usually requires us to lift our heads, stand up, and make an accommodation to get the club on the ball.
Exactly there, Martin. Would you like to hit a shot to demonstrate that?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to hit a shot. So, you know, a big part of the way Peter and I teach is a lot of it's routine and how we set up and waggle and tap the ground and get organized in the sense of I'm going to send this golf club in an orbit to a golf ball. The golf ball gets collected in that orbit because my intent is to send the golf club in a certain manner that is a down and out behavior by way of geometry. And if the golf ball is played, if we look at this circle again, you know, I'm touching this golf ball before I get to the bottom of this circle. And so, you know, if there's a Ferris wheel and there's a merry-go-round, and if I'm playing something inclined, that bottom of that hula hoop is fractionally ahead of the golf ball. So this event of going down and out to the golf ball, helps me have contact to the golf ball, then brush the ground, take maybe a mild divot, and then the club's geometry makes me kind of go back up and in on a realistic inclined circle. That is how we have to play this game of golf. So when you can see that in your mind and you understand the geometry of an inclined circle, I think golfers are better immediately. And by learning how to put your will into the golf club head properly with actively using your hands correctly, your body behaves rather nicely and supports the whole intent of striking crisp golf shots.
Yeah, exactly, Martin. That's very important that when you're hitting on the A to B line, you're hitting the ball first and the ground second. And that's another understood concept. A lot of golfers that get into the game, they have this idea that they help the ball up in the air. And they're kind of trying to lift it up rather than catching the ball on that ascending blow. So that when they make contact, the handle into the club head rather than the club head ahead of the handle. And that's all part of the A to B line. When you come down on that inclined wheel, the shaft will naturally have a tendency to be leaning forward. If you go on the outside, the tendency is that the club head gets there first, get the scooping up effect. So,
yeah, 100%. I think that, you know, it's pretty easy to see face on when you look at where your hands are, you know, the path your hands take in that sort of that center of both hands. As this is a direction down to the golf ball, there's a moment where the hands start to decelerate a little bit as the club head starts to accelerate a little bit, you know, and that's what helps you kind of stay tall. You got to stay tall to hit down. You can't get down to hit down. You got to stay tall to hit down, to stay on top of a golf ball. You use the expression that was meaningful to me and very helpful to some of the students we taught years ago in the expression of thumbs down. You know, so for the viewers, Peter, why don't you walk through some of the educated hands behavior of what that would mean and how a golfer that maybe doesn't have crisp contact, doesn't have the sensation of thumbs down, and how hands really go into that, the lead hand goes into that nice ulnar deviation just as a result of going A to B line, ball.
hey, look, Martin, that's a very important piece of technique you need to build in your golf swing, and that is that when you swing back, the swinging club hinges the wrists up so your thumbs are pointing up. Now, in the downswing, you don't want to hold that angle, otherwise what will happen is you'll flip over and your thumbs will never get deep into the shot. From the top of the swing, as I go slowly, it uncocks here. You add speed, all this uncocking happens a lot later, but the whole deal is the thumb must be pointing downward, and as it goes downward, then rotates. There's a naturalness in your hand that if you make your thumb point down, you'll see the last three fingers of the left hand start to curl, and that makes the thumb point down and gives you this arching of the left wrist through the impact zone. Very valuable when you want to make contact, because that way you get a solid impact as opposed to a scooping effect. And as the thumb goes down, those last three fingers curl, and that squares the club face. That squaring of the club face stops the slice.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
thumbs down and curling the last three fingers gives you that good compression on the golf ball. Also helps straighten the right arm, and it gives that great extension through the ball and helps really finish with a full rotation through the shot.
Right. You know, I take it, you know, as things you taught me as a young pro many years ago. I hate to age you, but it's been a long time now, Peter, but you're looking good, buddy. You know, so as we start to kind of work down and through impact, some interesting things start to respond. When you have educated hands to move your hands properly, like if you're looking at me in this camera lens right here, if you were to throw me a ball and I want to catch it, I'm really not thinking about my step I'm going to take to respond to catch the golf ball. Because, you know, as humans, most of our senses are in our hands, other parts of our body, but a great majority in our hands. So when we train this behavior and we learn how to make that A to B motion, you've got the look of it that you see all good players have, where they have comfortably long arms. They're in a sense of extension. There's no scooping behavior because you can't go thumbs down and scoop. It's one or the other. So when you learn how to make this motion of A to B from the club head to the golf ball, thumbs down, like I say, it's not either or. It's you do it right or you don't. And so if you build it properly and do it thoughtfully, slowly first, you know, it's amazing how you can build that up and be a very successful striker quickly.
Exactly. Basically, educated hands are the key. The hands control the club, that's definite, but they also are much better at controlling the arms and the body than trying to put your attention on the body. So with a good pair of educated hands, you're not only going to control the club, you're going to control the correct arm action and the body turn, the pivot. So you get the benefit of the three parts of you working together to help really get your power and your control. And that will help the system player.
Okay, gentlemen, moving on. Let's have a look at the next thing. The thinking club head and ball have same target is wrong. Golf is a two-target game. A to B produces B to T, the ball to the target.
Yeah, I think, you know, we've touched on some of that already. Like when you watch a competent striker hit a golf shot, you know, I'll hit a shot and, you know, there's a sense of waggle, a sense of pressure in my feet. Now I know the business end of this golf club is the club head. I've got to send that, you know, at the golf ball to hit a nice crisp shot. And that club is, you know, flying down and out. Now it doesn't, you know, obviously it's attached to me, so it's got elements of up and in, much like a string and a stone if I was spinning that around my hand. So there's an energy going down and out, and the response to that, my body is, you know, rotating in a barrel. There's not a whole lot of lateral motion in an effective swing. So the A to B, right, the club to the ball so the ball can go to the target is a really, really important thing, because I think most people are trying to go club to target. They're trying to make a club head go straight. I see it all the time. They're trying to influence the momentum and the inertia of the club head. Peter, what do you have to add about that?
Yeah, definitely. Golf is, you're wanting the club to swing naturally around your body, not down the target line. So when you're allowed to do that, you're going to be able to stay much better in balance. And golf is a rotational game. So it's not a lateral game. That's another thing that's probably a lot of people are trying to shift their weight too much, Martin. The idea is you've got to backswing in the backswing. In the backswing, you got to put. Well, basically, because the club swings on that side, you're going to have your arms, hands, and club this side. You're going to definitely put weight there, but you don't want to be trying to put your weight over to your right side and to your left side, because then when you basically will look to be consistent. Your timing is so difficult. If you can make golf more rotation, the turning in a barrel, then consistency is a lot easier at the bottom of the swing in the same place. Do you find
so I see that all the time too. You know, the talk about the weight transfer, and I think people try to do way too much of taking their body's mass and putting it on top of each foot. When you think about it, your arms weigh 8 to 15 pounds each, depending on who you are. And this behavior of you know, a push into the ground so that we create this rotation. That kind of momentum will create weight that goes in your trail foot. You don't have to physically try to move your weight to the right. Now, that's not to say you can't feel pressure, you know, in your little tripod legs here, or, you know, my bipod, as I move a little bit to feel the pressure of the ground. But the sense is I want to keep myself centered. So as I'm letting the club go about me here, my weight doesn't get completely on top of my right leg and my backswing, nor does it get completely on top of my left leg. In fact, my weight's behind my left leg as I strike a golf ball, and then eventually I finish and balance on my lead side, but not until the ball is long gone off my club face.
Yeah, definitely, it's a lot easier to be consistent if you just think of yourself as turning around. You're turning in a barrel and you're keeping your eye on the ball. By doing that, you're so much more right there where the golf ball is. So you don't have to readjust it. The timing is to a minimum when you can stay more centered. That's going to be a lot more consistent with your strike.
Excellent.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about the impact zone.
You want to go into that one for us for a moment? Thanks.
Yeah, so impact zone, you know, there's a moment where we're in an event of making both arms go straight. And I think every good swing has an area where that the trail arm and the hands are in an event where both arms get to go straight, where a lot of people don't have that condition. There's a lot of pulling, separating of the elbows. So, you know, developing a good solid impact, this kind of behavior where as I strike this shot, you know, that motion right there where hands are, I understand what I'm doing, hitting this little shot to both arms straight, you know, thumbs down, club head to ball, ball to target. If people understand that little behavior, they can grow it quite a bit. Now, Peter's got a bit more thorough way of explaining it, but I'll kick it over to Peter. But that to me is a critical thing that somebody can learn doing it slowly.
Right. Well, let's, if I come up a little bit closer, I'll just show you what the hands should be at the impact zone. It's very important. So it's important to make sure that when you do grip the club, you grip it in the fingers and that your wrist is on top of the stick. You don't have the wrist in front. So that with a good grip, then the impact is a lot different from the address. The address position of your hands will have your hands, the left wrist will be kind of bent, the shaft will be pointing at the center of your body. Your right wrist will be flat. But the difference between the address position and the impact position is that at impact, the right wrist is bent and the left wrist is flat or arched. When you have that left thumb going down and the last three fingers of your left hand curling, the impact condition of your left hand is in this attitude. So there's a bend or an arching wrist and the thumb is down. The right wrist will be really well bent. Now when that's happening, when you come down through the shot, you basically have this, the arms go from right arm slightly bent to right arm fully straight. That area there is called the impact. It's a little flat spot in the swing. I go back to where the ball is. This is what Ben Hogan really, Tiger Woods, Lee Trevino, basically all the great ball strikers, you know, today, John Rahm is a great ball striker. The impact is not a split second. It's the difference between his address in the middle with the handle. Beginning of impact, the hands are way ahead. The right arm is bent, but as you straighten the right arm, that whole zone there is called the impact area, and you want to have that. You don't want to have it being this breakdown of the left wrist and trying to lift the ball. And by being able to learn that impact zone, as opposed to something else, you'll find that you're going to be a lot more consistent with your contact and your pressure on the ball. And I would suggest that basically to learn it, don't start trying to do it with your driver. Just start the difference between address, go to the impact position. This is a drill you can build your impact. Notice the head stays still. The address position is there. The beginning of impact is there. The end impact is there. If I look at front on view, address and impact are not the same. I know that when a lot of students come to me in the past, that I say, well, can you show me where you'd like to be at impact? There's a lot of confusion because they say, oh, I want to come back to where I started. No, impact is not where you start. It's where you arrive at for a good shot. So the address position, the hip square, at impact, the hip shot are way open. At address, your right shoulder is a little lower. At impact, your right shoulder is a lot lower. And that allows the right arm to have a bend and then be able to expand. And that whole zone, about 6 to 8 inches, maybe a little longer if you're really good. If you hit the ball in that, it's a better compression, and you're going to be a lot more consistent. And the best is not with the driver. Start with little shots. First of all, what I showed you there, just going from address, the beginning of impact, the end of impact, learning that. When you can feel, okay, I can do that. Now I'm going to make a little backswing and I'm going to build that impact zone. So learn it with a chip shot. When you can learn to do that, then you go on and play a pitch shot. Now, I'm in my brother's backyard here in Brisbane. I'm not going to be hitting pitch shots over there. Shots. I can learn that here.
You know, it's interesting you say that. When you think about a young man who had success recently, Matthew Wolf, his coach really taught him how to have that look at impact. In fact, he did it so well that he made it a part of his pre-shot routine where he had a really exaggerated behavior to start his swing, because address and impact are not the same place. I think, you know, the number one illusion coming from the golf machine is that people want to return to where they start. And there's a lot of weight in the club head that even though you're trying to go A to B very, very hard with the hands, you know, the body responds, and we have this situation where the club head, it travels behind the hands as a result of Sir Isaac Newton's laws. So understanding that address and impact are two different places, that the right shoulder is a lot closer to what you're hitting. The great Mo Norman, the Canadian ball striker, used to say, I feel like I hit the ball with my right shoulder. He felt like his right shoulder got really, really low and close to the ball. Well, in order to do that and not chunk it, what had to happen to the trail elbow and the trail wrist? It had to take on more angle to reduce that dimension made up by the shoulder getting closer to the ground. You know, so like Peter's displaying, the pelvis opens, the hands are in that impact condition where the trail arm is getting long. And then, you know, once the ball is gone, if you have an elegant finish, perfect. If you have a finish like Arnold Palmer, perfect. The ball doesn't know. It just wants to know that message it gets an impact.
Excellent. You know, impact, it's very important to make an impact on impact. And when you can, you're going to be a lot more consistent as a golfer, that's for sure. So, next, in the area of consistency, I think a lot of people, their definition of the word pivot or body is a little bit misunderstood. And I think that really makes a golfer less likely to be consistent with their ability to hit the ball solid and to the target. Would you like to share a little bit about the body pivot for us, Martin, and how important it is?
Yeah, you know, I think, you know, it's interesting. You have pivots can get messed up a couple different ways. You know, I get a lot of juniors that they outrace things. You know, they don't have a good A to B sensation from, you know, their developed backswing, A to B back to the golf ball. I get pivots that really don't deliver a shoulder closer to what they're hitting because the club face was never assembled properly at the top. So a lot of your pivot comes from what the hands know and what the hands do. So, you know, getting your hands on correctly is something that precedes a good pivot because you can't have one without the other. So when your hands are on nicely, And the club face makes sense. And I know this is kind of tricky, and some people watching this will say, well, Martin, how do you know if the club head makes sense? You know, when you look at things in a mirror and you look at the back of your wrist and the club face, you know, that would be a condition, or that would be a way too strong a club face for that wrist condition. Or here's one that we call way open. And when the club face is open, it's pretty amazing how intuitive you get. Instead of hitting a ball way off to the right, you're going to do things where you don't let your right shoulder power. You don't go A to B, you get over the top, the face is wide open, you can't really have a pivot. Sometimes juniors will, you know, aren't strong enough to go A to B, or try to go A to B so hard that their body outraces what their arms are doing. So, you know, working on the behaviors of creating a pivot, I like to say that I like to teach people how to have motion in their feet. My head's not moving left and right now. My head's pretty steady, but my pressure is going back and forth, left foot to right foot. So what helps me kind of turn in my barrel is a sense of pressure left and right in my feet. And my pressure is left for the last time. So my weight's on my left side because I'm not staying idle over a golf ball. I'm always moving. Now I can push forward, and that push forward lets me wind myself into my lead side. Into my trail side, and start to develop a backswing. That same event, A to B, I'll find that I'll stabilize onto my left side, my lead side, and that's when I can hit down to both arms straight through a golf ball. And then from there, it's a matter of just kind of what I call finishing in style, letting the momentum on my swing take me to somewhat of a balanced finish for most shots.
That's great, Martin. Yeah, a lot of people, they try to, because they don't really understand or haven't drilled in their pivot, they're a little bit inconsistent with the way they move around, so that the club can't get back to the ball on a consistent basis. So I'd like to share with you a little drill that I find very useful to help me stay centered and pivot or wind up correctly in the backswing and unwind. So first of all, I take my club and I just push it against my hip line, and then feet comfortably apart, toes turned open. I think that's very important too. If you're going to pivot properly, you don't want to be pigeon-toed. I know that Arnold Palmer did this with his putting. That certainly stopped him pivoting. But for a full swing, you want toes slightly open, 20 to 30 degrees, good amount, because that lets you turn in both directions. Now, pushing the club against the hip, very important to have the right posture. So we can bend the hip while your pelvis is tucked under. You're fairly flat here. You're still bent from the hip socket. When I hold this here, I also get my shoulders comfortably back. I don't get round-shouldered. It gives me my chance to have my back as straight as possible. Unlock the knees so that I got my balance between the balls and my feet, so I can tap without upper body movement, dynamic balance. And I tilt a little this way because the right hand underneath the left on the grip and the right arm is slightly bent. It's really important to have the right shoulder lower than the left. And in the process, you can see my hips get pushed a little forward. Now, with that body position, when I'm in that correct posture, now I can pivot properly. So when I turn back, I don't want to go sideways, and I don't want to go up with the right hip. I want to turn as if in a barrel, and I actually want to feel that the right side actually lowers a little bit, corkscrewing into the ground. If you just keep your hands comfortably there and you're turning it about, you really feel the coil of your hips and your knees against your feet. They're winding up. There's no movement here. You're turning very consistently. If you have a consistent pivot, you're going to be able to have a more consistent golf swing. And you'll find that there's a lock or a load kind of, that's the maximum. Of course, your right leg straighten, then you start to get inconsistent with your pivot. So if we learn to do this as a drill, and then we practice the swing and we can feel it in the swing, we're going to be a lot more consistent with our backswing body turn, and therefore we're going to have a more of a chance to repeat the same swing.
So Peter, I'm gonna ask a question here, and Bob. So a lot of people are gonna say, how do you start the downswing, right? Everybody says, how do you start? I get that question all the time. And if I was to say to you, how do you throw this ball? It's interesting how this ball is going one way while my intent to move is going the other. So, I find it interesting that everybody says, how do you start the downswing? And, we're talking about this event of, if I have this intent really to make this club go A to B with intent to hit it far, I'm going to be loaded and ready to brace that sensation way before the time I just stop at the top, just like throwing a ball. If I had a secondary ball here, I could take it, and you taught me this drill years ago, how to throw that ball, boom, right on top of that ball on the ground. And it's funny how the event to do that, it's not this situation where it's a 1 and a 2. There's a bracing element that keeps me centered, that helps me go ahead and deliver that club head onto the golf ball, kind of like you would if you're throwing anything athletically.
Exactly. So just getting that's a nice drill to help you learn to make the correct body pivot in the downswing, which is a reaction to the throwing of the club head. But it's so important that when you get to the top of the backswing, you're not trying to transfer weight and slide sideways. Just the action of throwing will have the body pivoting so that it's more of a rotation, and the left side really straightens up as you hit. And then from there, the momentum of the swing will just bring you right through. So you finish, as Martin likes to say, finish in style. And you're not going to be falling all over the place. You're going to be able to just maintain that easy balance by having the correct throwing intention and attention.
Right. So, if I took a golf ball, because Peter doesn't want to break his brother's window, but, my intent, I'm not going to bounce this off the golf ball just because it might bounce somewhere in my office here. But, this event of, nice intent to throw that down nice and hard, you'll notice that wasn't something where I, had a lot of bizarre tilts. There is a motion of wind up that makes sense to deliver something the other way. And there's, I'm up while I thrust down. And then from there, there's momentum in that. So there's not a whole lot of, tilts and slide. There's more rotation than tilt.
Beautiful thing. That simple idea of throwing the club head at the ball has the body pivot naturally, and it's so much easier to finish in a balance when you're throwing your energy into the bottom of the swing, as opposed to trying to throw it out to the flag. I see a lot of people go out down the target line and they wonder why they fall backwards.
I agree. I agree completely. In fact, it's funny, like my friend's product, and this isn't a product promo, but, like this has a weight in it. And you can hear that. And you've got something like this, don't you, Peter? That has a sensation of, hear that click down at the bottom.
That Rick,
right?
Rick Whitfield.
Right? What's that, mate?
Rick Whitfield sends you that one.
This was a guy named Tony Bush. So this is a fellow from California, but a lot of people can't get that weight to shoot out at the right time. And I think that, things that have audible, tactile feel, so people can really kind of get their limbs and everything nice and long at the right time, rather than this nonsense, just kind of quote, keeping your head down. This event of like letting things really quite shoot down, and I have to do it harder than that to actually make it work. But you can, hear that. It takes athletic effort and coordination to do it. So these kind of devices work fantastic. And for me, as a pretty good golfer, there's times where I lose sequence. So you can imagine as a scratch golfer loses sequence, imagine how a 15, 18, 20 handicapper, maybe the sequence is infrequent. It only happens once in a while. With me, gratefully, it happens a lot because I've trained it in my whole life. So, being aware of how to take momentum and let that momentum shoot out and collect the golf ball to this both arms nice and straight, post impact condition is critical to what good golfers look like, rather than that dreaded chicken wing or, condition where you really aren't stable and in your full speed and structure through impact.
Yeah, look, that just reminded me that how powerful and how effective that concept of throwing A to B is. If you really put your attention and intention of getting this club to be as fast as possible at impact where the ball is, then a lot of knowledge will naturally happen and coordinate. You don't have to think about transferring your weight or turning or releasing it. If you just throw A to B, there's a natural release, like you were doing with that teaching aid there. Hear the click at the bottom.
Right.
Gentlemen, got a little question here from Ken. What is a good drill to help those people whose bodies tend to outrace the arms and hands when trying to throw A to B, as Martin mentioned in the last section? So what is a good drill to help those people?
Well, I'm going to start because I'm guilty. I'm a good striker, but my body outraces. So I know Peter has some clicky devices. Friend sent him. My friend, I use the slingshot. It's called it's just a reminder of how to energize. The great Ben Doyle, one of our mentor coaches for Peter and I, used to say about shooting a BB out the shaft. Imagine if there was a BB in the shaft, how that BB can fire out the shaft. It would never fire out the shaft if you drug the handle, right? So for those people that are out racing with the lower body, obviously they need more intent to get the club head to flee away from them, A to B down toward the golf ball. And the fascinating thing is, I have a lot of golfers that come to my golf school every week that say, I don't want to be handsy. And I'll be like, well, do you think my swing's handsy? And they say, no, your swing doesn't look handsy. You've got a very nice swing. I say, thank you. Because my intent is correct. They're pulling, they're willing the golf club incorrectly. So, by taking the club head and learning how to go A to B properly to both arms straight, a lot of beautiful things happen with the rest of the body that they're trying to do things they don't need to try to do. So I'd tell that friend that asked that question, let's go ahead and make sure that we understand that we can assemble a backswing. You can even stop up here if you want to, and learn how to uncock in the plane of the lead arm. In my case, my left arm, and it kind of looks like this. And uncock, like with meaning, hard, and collect the golf ball, and that body will stabilize and support your event rather than outrace what you're trying to do.
Fantastic. Look, just to go a little further on that same point, for those that are not educated yet, or they're trying to pull the club, they just don't really have a clear picture of what they want to do with this club. So they will let the club head get to the ball rather than the body get there too early. Go down the grip on the club. And what you do is, I go back to where I made the full swing. I take my stance here and I go to the top. What I want to do first is just learn to do this with my hands and arms. And then, as I can do that with my hands and arms, go a little further. So this is going here, and then a little bit further. And before you know it, you'll be up here, so you can really throw the club head. You'll find the body will naturally do what it's supposed to do in the process. The faster you throw, the faster your body will respond and be there for you. You don't have to think about your body, you just have to think of throwing the club head. So if you want to throw the club head, learn to put up here first. Go a little bit further down, watching the ball. As you get down to the full length, then you can just go whack. There you are.
And thank you for the great answers and help. That's from Ken. So that's obviously explained that very, very well. We've covered most of it, but how about talking about the butterfly drill?
I'll demonstrate the butterfly drill. So basically here, if I push my hands together, push them down, all of a sudden By doing this act, my arms come together so that loosen, they'll be connected. So then I push the left hand against the slightly resisting right hand, my hands and arms will stay in front of my body. Now, if Martin likes to try that as well, while we're both doing it, you just keep doing that. All of a sudden, you find you've got structure in your arms, but also when you push with your hands, arms, and your body, will go both ways. So,
yeah, I agree. I mean, it's funny how the butterfly drill, because, you look at it and you can say, okay, that could be a butterfly, but, I just call, there's all good players, there's opposition in their grip. So here's opposition. So keeping that sensation of a right hand push, like in my case as a right-handed golfer, the lifeline of the right hand pushing against the left thumb. Now, here's the interesting thing. You cannot see what I feel. So as I'm pushing against I'm still pushing, and you can see how most people like to retract, they withdraw, they separate their hands in their backswing. High-level players will have that butterfly opposition, and they'll keep that opposition, which keeps structure in their arms and makes it rather easy to go A to B, because if you have this disassociation, now you really can't get the club head to go A to B with much efficiency.
excellent. I really, what you did there with the left hand holding and the right acting as a support and resistance. If you take the right hand and you put a left, say a forefinger there, you do the same thing with the left hand, you'll discover how important it is. You don't pulling with your left and get the chicken wing on the follow through. Keep pushing there, it'll help that whole extension thing. If you do it the wrong way, your hands will come apart. So keeping your hands together throughout the whole swing, that's the feeling of this connection. I think very important. You want to get a consistent play. You don't want your arms coming across your body. You want them to stay in front of your body. And what Martin was saying there, you want to feel they're in opposition slightly.
Yeah, and we'll take in my golf school. I don't have a frisbee handy, but we have frisbees all around my academy and my place of work. And so, you can see this little device. And so that's an open palm where I've got this frisbee style, and I'll have a lot of students put a frisbee in here, and it's amazing once they have this opposition hand to hand, how much more organized their turn and this A to B behavior gets. And it's really, really hard to chicken wing when you're opposing, because you have a pretty much instinctive rate of closure. So, having the hands pushed together may feel awkward. You may feel, typically when you push your hands together, you'll feel your pecs engage a little bit, which is a welcome thing. So that sense of your pecs engaging and keeping those hands, and I'm not talking a ton of pressure, just enough. Like I could put a T between my lead thumb and my lifeline of my trail hand, my right hand, and keep a T in there the whole time without it falling out. That opposition's a big deal.
Hands together is important. And the final thing, I think, the one point that about being consistent, people say, well, to be consistent, shouldn't I make the club face point to the target throughout the whole swing? So this idea of having the club face open and closed, providing you're turning in the barrel and you're not swaying, it's just like a door opens and closes, it'll come back square. You don't have to try to square it. The natural swing will have, if you've got a good grip and stance and you pivot well, the club will square itself through the bottom. So you want to allow the club face to open and close. And what Martin was just highlighting there is when you put the hands together, especially if you have something between and you've got one hand off, that there's a naturalness of a constant rate of closure. You don't have to worry about controlling or timing that club face. So I think this push idea together certainly helps it become a lot more consistent.
Now, I don't know the gentleman's name. I believe it was Dennis. I saw his name pop up. And so tension to me, this is a pet peeve of mine, like leaving trash outside. Pet peeve of mine is people that don't know how to get the club in their hands and waggle it. Okay, well, waggle to me is an important thing that precedes a good strike. Too many golfers set the club on the ground, and then from there, they've got to squeeze the handle and ultimately, what I say, grab and go. And I don't like grab and goes. I like people that pretend like they're Tiger 2000. Why Tiger 2000? Because he won the US Open by 15 shots in the year 2000. And he walked up to every shot with his club pre-gripped in his left hand, paired his right hand to the club, set it, tapped the grass for a moment. And now notice, my club is nowhere near the golf ball. It's in waggle mode, and my pressure's in my feet. And then from there, I can tap the ground, and then I can have my little Kickstarter that helps me be appropriately tense. Not over tense, and certainly not in a place where I have to grab the club and go. So please, please, please get used to getting the hands and get the club off the ground. Waggle it to relieve yourself of tension, but more importantly, feel the weight of the club head in those hands and your feet against the ground. Calm yourself, push and go, and you'll do way better. That's my parting shot. Peter, what do you want to add?
That's fantastic. I find a lot of people get to think too much over the golf shot, and I like to recommend that they have a little bit of a rhythm beforehand by saying a couple of things. So I like to say what I do. If I'm going to hit a golf shot, and just a little drill you can say to yourself, waggle, and that's keeping the club in your hands. Waggle, waggle, waggle. Then you tap, 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 tap. So that gives you a little bit of a rhythm thing and a tempo, and keeps you in motion, and gets rid of the tension. The second thing that after the tap, 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 you go push, that's a forward pressure, kick start, and then push, and then hit. So if you can say what you do, do what you say, and basically do it in time, so you get the right, say it when you do it. So waggle, 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 tap, 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 push, push, hit. I missed. But
I love it.
Your idea is to hit the ball. So you say hit and hit. So you just try that as a little mantra. It'll tend to stop you thinking about too many things, and it'll help your rhythm. And it'll, what Martin says there, it'll keep you in motion, and you get a feel for the club head, and you get rid of that excess tension that comes when you get to think too much. But to everyone, I really like to thank Martin. So giving me a pretty good plug, but he's got the best golf school that I go to in the States. Of course, we could just give it, your ones in Arizona are voted the #1 golf school in Arizona for so many years. You've been voted the most popular instructor with the online program that you started with Revolution Golf and then Golf Pass. But he's got great teaching aids. Go to tourstriker.com. Go to his Tour Striker Golf Academy.com if you want to look at the school time. And as soon as we come out of lockdown over here, Martin, I'm over to visit with you, and I'm going to come to one of your schools for a bit of a refresher myself. Okay?
Come on over, buddy. We'll have fun.
Exactly it. So for those that want to go any further, please put your name in the chat box, your email address. And if you'd like to have a little 15-minute or less, that's what it'll take us to have a look at your swing. I'm willing after this, for those that are on this, if they send me their email address, I'll set up a Zoom session and give you a swing analysis as part of the incentive for being here today. So thanks very much, Martin. You're really good at understanding and being able to communicate this golf swing in a fun and a very very precise way, so people can actually duplicate it and put it into action on the golf course. So thanks, buddy.
Gentlemen, it's been fun. Bob, thanks for your help today, pal. Peter, you have a great one, buddy.
Okay. All the best.